my name is Kaniz Zohra Siddiqui. I live here in Houston, Texas, and I'm a practicing nurse. I'm an artist. I do microblading. I'm a celebrity makeup artist, among a lot of other things that I like to do and share my passion with the world. So I would say that I'm an advocate for fashion and for beauty. I like to promote, fashion. I like to practice the utmost fashion, but do it in the boundaries of my hijab. I have never dismissed an outfit or a designer or anything because it's not hijab friendly. It's a little bit more work to make my outfits more hijab friendly, but it's worth it because at the end of the day, I'm still gonna look good. So along the way, as being a henna artist, I was given the opportunity to actually become a makeup artist, go behind the scenes at a fashion show and do makeovers for the models, for the hosts and the organizers. And that was my first step into the fashion industry as a makeup artist. And the way the people received me was just so overwhelming. The models were just, gaga over my work, the hosts and the organizers, the media personnel. And then that kind of took me to more opportunities in the fashion world, into the makeup world, into the beauty industry. I was, blessed with opportunities to do makeup for Pakistani celebrities, including Bushra Ansari and QB, she's a musician. And also in the Bollywood industry, I've done makeovers for, Jasmine Sandler. She's a Bollywood playback singer and a, musician herself. Udit Narayan ji, I got the opportunity to do his makeup, and it was just incredible if I just do and go along with what may be meant for me, may not be meant for me. I like to keep smaller expectations and just wait for it to turn into something big rather than having a big expectation and fall flat on my face. So recently I've got the opportunity to do makeovers for Indian classical dancers across the Houston area for their programs that they're presenting on stage. It may be their graduation day, it may be the guru is performing, things like that. And doing the Indian classical makeup, the makeup form is very exaggerated because the person who's performing the classical dance is actually using the features of their face, their eyebrows, their eyes as part of portraying the character, associated with the play. So as a hijabi, I wear the hijab every day of my life, everywhere I go, whether it's, to check the mail or to the department stores or whatever the case may be. And I always get people coming up to me and they always say, can I ask you a question? Most of the time I already know that it's going to be related to the hijab. Sometimes it's not. So I love those opportunities, and I always encourage the person, yes, please ask me. I would love to answer your questions that you have. And they typically do ask me, what is this and why am I wearing it? And I ask them what their religion is, and it gives me a chance to speak about my religion, promote my religion, and share whatever I can knowledge of what little I do have about my religion with them. And it gives them some sort of answer that they're looking for, and it gives them the satisfaction of knowing versus not knowing. So I've actually been wearing the hijab since the age of 13, and I'm not going to say I was forced into it. I was actually inspired into it. There was a friend of mine in 7th grade who actually practiced wearing it in middle school here in Houston, Texas. And I was so inspired by her, and I started practicing. And then by the 8th grade, I actually took it and started wearing it. And I asked my mother, who at the time was not wearing the hijab, because, coming to the States, she had done away with it to kind of, mingle in better into society. So in the beginning of 8th grade, I asked my mom, I said, Mom, should I wear the hijab on the first day of school, or should I go without it? And remember, I've already been practicing for about a good year, and I'm going to a new school. So my mom told me, she said, if you're gonna do it on the first day so people accept you with it, instead of doing it later when it'll be more difficult for them to accept you as a different person. When I started wearing the hijab at 13, no one in my immediate family was actually practicing wearing the hijab, but that didn't deter me from wearing the hijab. I did it because my heart told me I had to do it, and I wanted to do it. So it was an inner desire of mine to wear it. And then when I wore it, I owned it. I own my hijab every single day. And in any environment, whether it's, as a makeup artist, whether it's as a nurse, whether I'm in non-Islamic events or anything, I'm still proud of it, and I carry it as if I'm proud of it. So everybody knows that the hijab is actually part of me. I know it's part of my identity. I actually do feel incomplete without it. So I'm the mother of 2 teenage daughters, mashallah, by the blessings of God. And one of them practices wearing it and the other one doesn't. And I'm okay with that, and we can all coexist in the same house. So my job as a mother is to educate them, share their religion and its beauty. And I myself am a living example of it. And I hope and I pray that they are inspired by myself, my practices, and then I'm preaching it. I'm not doing it and then telling them to do it. I'm actually doing it. And then I'm, inspiring them to do it as well. Like I tell them every day, I'm like, every day of your life, you've seen me in a hijab. So I, want that to be an inspiration. So in my nursing experience, I've always been blessed with very positive patients who have always accepted me with my hijab. And that is such a true blessing for me. There is a case where I had a patient who I was new with, so I introduced myself, and she point blank just told me that I don't like you because as a Christian, I was raised not to like you. That gave me a reason to still take care of her and still do what I needed to do as a nurse, but still be proud as a Muslim that she allowed me to take care of her regardless of what her beliefs were. And I was able to give her my love and my care, and she was able to accept it regardless of the beliefs that she had. So knowing this patient of mine, a 99-year-old geriatric patient who does not have dementia or anything, so what she says is what it is. And for her to put her finger up at me like that was very difficult. And to get through to her and be able to care for her, and at the end of it, she appreciated it, means so much. That means that anyone who has 2 different views, 2 different beliefs, we should still respect each other and we should still coexist, and we're all human at the end of the day. And regardless of your beliefs, you can still help another human being, and that other human being in the time of need is going to allow you to help them.
I'm an artist and art educator. I was born in Los Angeles, California, to Syrian immigrant parents, and I moved to Houston when I was 3. So I mainly grew up in Houston. And I didn't know that I wanted to be an artist at first, but I was always drawing and always painting, and I was encouraged when I was a lot younger to pursue art and to paint and draw and be creative. But as I got older into, I would say, like middle school, early high school, I remember a day when all of my art was ripped up and it was considered a waste of time, and it was kind of shocking to my system, and I started kind of hiding my artwork at that point. And then it wasn't until I was graduating high school where I decided I wanted to be an animator. That never happened. I ended up going to school for graphic design, tried twice to get into the program in U of H. I was too illustrative for them. They recommended that I go into an illustration program, which U of H didn't have, and I was done with school. I was like, I'm just gonna get a fine arts degree and be done with it. So I graduated with a degree in art and a minor in business and art history. And I started working in graphic design anyway. I was like, I don't care whether or not I actually got a degree in graphic design. I found a business partner and we started making websites. We started making business cards, logos for all kinds of people. I continued that a little bit on my own. I'd find my own clients and that kind of fizzled down. So I thought, okay, I need something more sustainable. My dad suggested teaching. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And the reason I finally agreed to be a teacher, and he'd been bothering me about it for some years, like, go ahead and teach, you can teach. It's easy, you'll be fine. All my aunts are teachers. So I was like, okay. But like I was saying, the reason I finally agreed after so much pushback was I was teaching art part-time at summer camps and weekend schools and things like that. And there was one moment where a child, who I still see from time to time, looked at his finished piece of art and was just so in shock with what he had done. He was like, what, this is my art? I finished this, I made this? And that had this profound effect on me, and I thought, like, that's what I want. I want to have that effect on kids. And I want them to see the potential in themselves of how creative they can be, and to show them that it's okay to be creative. And I guess that's going back to that moment in my life where all my art was ripped up, and that was a really brief moment. I just wanted to go back to that for a minute, because once I decided I wanted to do art for a living and wanted to be an artist, my parents are really supportive after that. They're always critiquing my artwork. They're always pushing me to be better in my own art. And that's surprising for me, just because I always remember that, what happened in middle school. And they've come a long way in that. And my husband also is really supportive in my artwork and pushes me to be better as well. Jungle Cat Studio, that's my Instagram. That's where I show a lot of my artwork and my animals. It's basically a jungle in my studio. And I used to give my cat the nickname Jungle Cat because the way he'd stalk animals outside, and it was so entertaining. So I just call him, oh, my little jungle cat, and that kind of is where the name came from. The actual jungle came about later, where I started just adding plants, and I love plants to begin with. So I started adding more indoor plants, and it became a literal jungle when I added more animals. The parrots, for example, they make it really lively in here, and sometimes it's so noisy it sounds like a jungle at night, with the cat meowing and the parrots, screeching, and the little feet of the ferret, and it's funny. But so I guess the same way that I want people to look at my art as something unique and that they can identify with, it might have something to do with that I've always wanted to feel unique and not necessarily identifiable, but approachable. And because I've been wearing hijab since I was 9, and that was a really weird decision for a 9-year-old to make. But I didn't, growing up, I didn't want to be seen as, oh, just another hijabi, we're all the same, we all like the same things, we all do the same things. And it was always really important for people to know that I'm a little different. I'm kind of a hippie sometimes, and of course there's going to be other Muslim hijabi hippies, but we're all unique, down to even the way we wear hijab, or the way we choose to dress, or the way we choose to speak, or the way we choose to act, or and I think me really wanting to show the world that I'm a unique person and not just another person with a hijab on translates into my art, in that I need people to know that it's not just a pretty picture, it's not just some flowers and some designs. And that's the way I feel like a lot of Islamic decorative arts are, and that's why I don't do that. And I'm not traditional with my Islamic art, I can just do a piece that's purely geometric. but I need to infuse a little bit of something else with it. Because the ones where the watercolor kind of seeps to the edge of the page and it kind of goes off the page, I like that. And I think that might also have something to do with me not wanting to stay in the box. And I've been really fortunate that, you know, my parents were they really let me choose my path. I know maybe it didn't sound like that, but they always kind of sat back and watched and just kind of let me make my mistakes. They definitely advised me, and were really curious as to how I was going to maneuver in my life. And that really manifested when I was choosing to be an artist, and also when I was choosing my husband, because I think a Mexican was not what they expected for me to marry. And having worn hijab since I was 9, the year 9/11 happened, a few months before it happened. That was kind of a nightmare to live through. But other than that and a few like isolated experiences, wearing hijab for, I guess, over a decade, I've always had a positive experience, and I've always had a positive I guess reception, like the same way that people like my art. They've always liked me, you know, growing up, elementary, middle school, high school, college. It's always really easy to make friends, and hijab had never really been an issue. It was never like a roadblock. It was never anything that stopped me from doing anything that I wanted to do. And the hijab, I guess, I never wanted it to identify me. I never wanted it to be, oh, I'm a hijabi and that's what I am. No, you know, yes, I'm a Muslim, but I never really knew how to explain it, but like that's not my identity. That's part of who I am, and it's definitely shaped who I am, but it's not me as a whole. And I think it gave me, I never thought about it. I think it gave me confidence, you know? Because if I can do this and I can walk through the world, you know, doing something that other people are going to look at, other people are going to question, other people are going to comment on, or like I'm in people's face, you know, especially when you wear bright colors. So doing that as a young person and growing up wearing hijab, I think it gave me confidence in life to sort of go forth and just take what I wanted to take out of life, you know. Because it's more than confidence, it's sort of self-assurance that I can do whatever I'm going to put my mind to, because this is something that when I put my mind to it, my dad was against it when I was younger. He was like, you're little. Why are you wearing hijab when you're 9? Doesn't make sense. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And that was the moment in my life, I think, where I realized that when I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. And ever since then, that's kind of how I lived my life. Just with confidence, and I think that's something that the hijab gave me.
Hi, my name is Heather El Sayed. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with my family, John and Christine, and my 2 older brothers, John and Michael. We were raised in a moderate Christian family home, Polish Catholic actually, and it's something that I hold dear to me as my identity as being Polish. We have lots of beautiful family memories around the kitchen table at holiday seasons for Christmas, where we would be celebrating being Polish. As I got older in high school, I was playing sports, and I held strong onto my faith when I was in high school and carried that into college, where I was identifying with my religion, but I had a lot of questions as to why I believed what I believed and why we did what we did within the religion. So I started to have a lot of questions about my faith, and that led me to start to discover other faiths when I couldn't find the answers within my own faith. So I started to look into Hinduism, Judaism, agnosticism, and also just believing in God existed, but without really being in a religion. And so I made that my choice, that I would not be identifying in an organized religion, but I would believe that God was a higher power. And so that's how I chose to live my life for a few years in college. While I was in college and identifying as just agnostic, where I believed that God was a higher power, but not an organized religion, I had made friends with a lot of diverse people. And one of my friends was a Muslim girl. And she started to teach me about Islam, very little, but she did give me my first Quran, which I kept with me, and I actually hid it, that nobody knew I had it, because I knew the perception of Muslims around my circle of people in my life. And so I never really read it, but it was something that I just kept as, this is cool, something that I have that's different. And it wouldn't be until a couple years later that I actually started to read it. After I graduated college, I was continuing on this path of what do I want to be, where do I fit, what do I believe in? And it was a time of turmoil in my life. And so I found myself near rock bottom in my decisions that I was making, my emotions. And so I decided I'm going to search for something that speaks to me, that touches me. And I went to Barnes & Noble's and I went down the religion aisle, and they have a ton of different books that you can look at. And I found, I believe it was called Islam for Dummies. It was one of those books that you can find that's just the basic top knowledge of a subject that you need. And I bought it. And when I started reading what Muslims believe, Jesus was in there, peace be upon him, the virgin birth with Mary, all of these indicators for me that I always held true to, but didn't know how to articulate, is something that I related to. And so I Googled, how do you become a Muslim? And I said the Shahada quietly in my room with no one around me, and that's how I became a Muslim. After becoming officially Muslim, if that's a thing, I had to make the decision of when I was going to tell my mom. We're both very close, and so I had been keeping this from her, which was very difficult for me. I know that she had seen my book, trying to learn about Islam and the Quran, but she didn't know how serious I was. She thought I was in a phase. So when I came home that day to visit her, she was talking to me about how serious is this Islam thing to you? And I looked at her and I said the Shahada. And she said, what is the Shahada? And I said, I've already made my decision. I'm Muslim. And I converted today. And my mom looked, gasped. And tears welled in her eyes. Not so much that I became a Muslim, but the family aspect of Catholicism that we have, the Polish Catholic family memories, baptizing your child, First Holy Communion, these were all things that she was concerned about with my future children. And was this something that I could live with if I'm saying that Jesus is not the Son of God? Am I really okay that this might affect my afterlife? Once we sat down and had the discussion about what Muslims believe, how we pray, she felt at more ease. But I know that it's something that has been difficult still as we've transitioned through life and how things happen. Holidays, the Christian holidays like Christmas, Easter, these things we've had to navigate through as a Muslim family. And being respectful of one another's differences. which has been difficult for both sides. But thanks to God, we found our middle ground. For my brothers, they were fine either way. I'll never forget when I told them about me becoming a Muslim or even wanting to wear hijab. When they saw me in hijab, they laughed and thought, you should have been wearing this all along. So my father's reaction was mixed. He was upset, but he still loves me. It's still something that he can't fully accept right now, but we respect one another. And we have our differences, and we talk about Islam, and we talk about the similarities with Catholicism, as well as world politics. I think the key with my family is just showing them I'm still Heather, I'm still me, just a little different. Overall, my family saw that once I became Muslim, I changed in many ways for the positive. And for that, my mom says that she thanks God every night, because before I had become Muslim, she told me that she was praying every night that God would just lead me to a path that I felt comfortable, because she saw that I was lost. And so when she found that I had peace, she became at peace with my decision, alhamdulillah. For my friends, when you become a convert to Islam, you have different phases that you go through. Family, friends, and you learn who really loves you conditionally or unconditionally. For me, my friendships all changed. I'm only friends with 2 of all of the friends I had before I became Muslim. People that I'd known since I was 14 years old stopped talking to me, blocked me in every sense of the way, including ignoring me if they see me even now to this day in the grocery store when I visit back home, which is okay, because they don't have to live my life, but it was a loss that I had to learn how to grieve through. I'd say the difficult thing about being a convert to Islam is everybody expects you, to do it all at once. As an adult woman, they want you to cover, or they want you to be proper in the way that they feel you should be proper, instead of giving you the time to handle this new chapter in your life. Plus, you also have the expectations of other people that you love, that you care about, they have their own perceived perception of what a Muslim is. And then you have your own. What does that mean to be a Muslim, an American Muslim, a convert Muslim? All of these identifiers that I now had that I didn't know how to articulate or weed through, happening all at one time. And so for me, I just had to take my time and find where I fit, which wouldn't happen for a couple of years. But I learned that God, even if people are taken from your life, God gives you new people in your life that will help guide you in a different way, in a new way, to help that pain hurt a little less. It still hurts every now and then when I think about it. But all I can say is alhamdulillah from where I am and from where I was. After I became Muslim, shortly after, I married and I had my children. I was working as a consultant at the time. And after I became a mother, I decided to be a stay-at-home mom for a while and think about what I could bring to the table now. And so when I thought about it, my passion is fitness. And I love working out. I've always worked out. And I was training people in college. So I decided that I was going to make that my new focus. And so I started to put my efforts into the Muslim community. And so I became a certified personal trainer and group fitness instructor. And so I started teaching Muslim women in the community how to work out. And now it's become my career. It's become part of me. And what I'm bringing into my world now and sharing with Muslim women. They can do kickboxing and yoga and strength training with their weights. And it was something that was mine, that it's still me, and I'm wearing the hijab, yes, but I'm able to do these things and more. You know, training people to run their half marathons for the first time and 5Ks, Muslim women who didn't see that maybe Muslim women can do this, you know, run in the street and get a medal for running and winning a 5K. So that's been my passion for the last 5 years. And also teaching nutrition on how to feed your family healthier meals and what you can do to be the best you, and taking care of your families, that you're worth it. As not just a Muslim woman, but all women. I'm an advocate for women to take control of their health and also take back some of their time, especially as moms. We start to think that all these other things matter and our time for ourselves becomes very little. But 1 hour a day, I'm a huge advocate of that. You're worth at least 1 hour of your own time. And that is my passion in showing women in the community, and not just Muslim women, all women, that this is something that they can do. So growing up with my family, we were surrounded by beautiful Polish traditions for Christmas time. And it was a piece of my childhood that has meant so much to me. My grandmother, my grandfather, aunts, uncles, cousins, we would all get together around the table. And that's really important to me. Even now that I'm not a Catholic, I'm a Muslim, I have added that aspect of my culture into how I practice my faith. So when I am having Eid, our celebrations for Islam, I'm bringing those types of food to the table and recreating my childhood memories for my children, so they also have my culture blended in with my Egyptian side of the family, and other cultures as well. When my girls go to gatherings with me for sisters gatherings or family gatherings, I tend to bring dishes that are of my family, so I can introduce my culture through food to other cultures. As I learn from them, they learn from me. Another really cool thing that we are doing with our children is for singing Happy Birthday. We not only sing it in English, we sing it in Arabic, we sing it in Spanish, and we sing it in Polish. So we're bringing all the pieces of our families together in every birthday for every person, not just even the children, but for our husbands or wives or family members. And it really is meaningful to me, as well as very meaningful to my family, my mother, my father, brothers, that they see that, yeah, I'm Muslim, but I'm still Polish, I'm still Heather, I still value how they raised me. And it's through the mutual respect that we have, that they see a side of Islam that they may not have before I became Muslim, alhamdulillah. One of the challenges that I had when I became Muslim and I decided to wear hijab, or the head covering, was the modest clothing. What I thought was modest and what other people think are modest can be two different things, especially when you go to a mosque and you think you're covered, but you find out you're not covered enough, right? So it's taken me some years to find my fashion, and thank God for YouTube and other types of like Instagram, places that I can find inspiration on how to match my hijab with my purse or shoes. But it's definitely been a challenge for me, because you have to layer your pieces. So for instance, if you're wearing a tank top, you have to wear a long sleeve, light jacket over top. But if you're living in somewhere like Houston, Texas, that's extremely hot. So you have to invest in your time to find a good wardrobe that's light and not see-through and covers properly, that you're comfortable with. And if everybody else isn't okay with it, you kind of learn to be okay with it, even if they're not okay with it. Because for you, your modesty is what you choose it to be honestly. And so when I was going into the fitness world, that was one of my challenges, because trying to find something that weren't super tight yoga pants to work out in was a challenge. Having baggy pants wasn't really functional for me doing yoga or other types of techniques. So I started to mishmash my things together. So a skirt with yoga pants and a baggy shirt. Even now at Acapella Dance Fitness, where I'm working with my friends Tahira and Amara, the three of us, we have to find the best way to advertise the studio and the weight loss process while being modest, which is very difficult if you think about the fitness industry and what is pushed to show success and show new milestones. And now having to do that in a modest setting is a challenge. But we figure it out, we make it work. And I'd say the only thing that I miss about not wearing hijab was just when I was running in a tank top, feeling the sun on my shoulders. For now, it's become such a part of me, I can't imagine not wearing my scarf. And even, true story, my mom, when she visited, we went to a hair salon and I was wearing a hood. I wasn't wearing the scarf, but I was covering my hair with a hood. And she's so used to me now wearing it. When we went to the hair salon, she told the salonist about, look at my daughter's scarf, and isn't it so pretty? So my point is, the scarf had become part of me. It is part of me now. And so having that be part of my new identity and something that I'm comfortable in, I don't feel oppressed wearing it. I don't feel overwhelmed wearing it. Even when I do find challenges, I do feel hot sometimes. Yes, I get that question, I am. But overall, I'm comfortable with my decision and how I wear my hijab and my modest outfits. I remember when I moved into my new neighborhood, my husband and our children, we noticed that the neighbors were not as friendly as we expected. Everybody they would see us and we'd go to wave and they would retreat back to their homes. We know why. You don't want to assume, but when they say hi to everybody else and they're not saying hi to you, you know that that has something to do with the scarf or just the fact that, we're Muslim. But I decided that what I needed to do was to meet my neighbors. So about a year after we moved in, I made some candy apples and I took my two girls and we walked over to our neighbor's home, knocked on the door, and when she saw the two girls standing there with candy apples and the hijabi, she was shocked. But her reaction was very welcoming, and she couldn't believe that, she had meant to say hi, and she told us she had meant to say hi. But we were the ones who did it first. And I learned that food is the greatest way to meet your neighbors. And now our neighbors all know us. I've taken them cookies for our holidays, as well as cookies for their holidays. I love to bake. So now all of our neighbors have communicated with us and we communicate with them. And it took that first step of being able to look outside the box and say, what can I contribute to the neighborhood? How can I show them that, I'm just a normal person. Yes, I'm Muslim. You can see it visually, but I'm just like everybody else, and you're more than welcome to say hi to us and our children. So any advice that I can give to Muslims, non-Muslims, is to literally know thy neighbor and extend that olive branch to one another. Try and find a way that you can say hi that is inviting and welcoming, because then the conversation can be had where you don't have to talk about religion, you don't have to talk about the weather, things that are relatable to both of you, that make it that they see you as a human and you see them as a human instead of this us versus them reality, because it's not really true. At the end of the day, we can all work together to make our interactions with one another positive or negative, and you choose. So try to be the positive, even just a simple smile to somebody, to show that we are welcoming and we are American and we have a place here and we want to be here and we accept others as well that are not Muslim. We're all just trying to do our very best here on earth, and I think we let other people, other sources tell us what we should think about other demographics or whatever, and it gets into our head. But if we just go back to the basics of a simple hi, we'd learn that we have a lot more in common.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace and blessings be upon you. My name is Miriam Colon. I am Puerto Rican. I've been Muslim for 20 years and born and raised in New Jersey by a typical Puerto Rican family. And I must say, I converted to Islam and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah, so just to backtrack a little bit, going into my childhood, I grew up into what I would call a typical Puerto Rican style family. I was the youngest of 6. And so I had other siblings from previous marriage my father was in. And then he met my mom and helped her raise my brother. And then they had me. So I'm the only child they have together. And they recently adopted a young boy. So now there's 7 of us. And we were all born and raised in New Jersey. And as my parents both moved there at a young age. And I mean, I must say that I had fun. I had fun growing up in our household with, so many family members. And such a fun father. My father has the personality of I would say the personality of a typical man with the boost of all of the Puerto Rican characteristics that you can possibly think of, all the good and the bad. I don't know how to describe him, but he is just a bombshell and the coolest father that I could ever have. He's funny. All of my cousins know him as being the comedian of the family. And we always partied. I had a fun childhood because we always partied. There was always a party to go to or a reason to party. And so although my family didn't really practice Catholicism religiously, they made time for the Christmas parties and the, New Year's and the Three Kings Day. So whatever they can find time to celebrate, it was a reason to have a party. When I asked them, when I began to have a little bit more curiosity towards why are we doing this, or what's so religious about Easter and what is the meaning behind it, why are we celebrating it, I realized that it was more of a traditional thing than a religious, strong religious foundation behind it. I would ask questions like, what is the meaning of this, or what is the meaning of that? And eventually, I believe that's what led me to finding Islam, because I was always curious, and a simple answer was never enough for me. I always wanted to know the depths of things, and I questioned in detail who God was, or how I was created, and why. What my purpose was something that I was always looking for. And there was never a doubt that God existed. But there was always a doubt towards how I should worship him. And so I never really did. But all along, I was having so much fun. And then, I went into high school and you start making friends and you turn 18. So now you can go clubbing. Okay. So years went by of me just having the time of my life, being young, pretty, single, and just not so free, because I would get in trouble when I came back home. But I felt a sense of freedom and I enjoyed it. And I clubbed. I used to club hop. Now I mosque hop. And so I clubbed. I clubbed from Friday night to like, I probably came home Saturday morning, sometimes to the point where it was a problem for my parents. They didn't understand it. So until I saw my sister at a club one day, and they realized she's not doing anything wrong. She's at a club, but she's like learning how to dance, so leave her alone. And so I grew out of it. Years went by. I finished high school. I was always a pretty good student. Other than not wanting to follow rules, I did good with my academics. I took it to college, and from there, I asked more questions, and I wanted to know more. But really, I had 3 different encounters with Islam. One at the age of 12, one in high school, and then when I got to college in 2001, the terrible disaster of the 9/11 tragedy just like really affected me. It was the saddest time in my life. That made me want to research Islam even more. Not because I was interested in becoming Muslim at that time. I was really just afraid for my life. And I wanted to educate myself and know what it is that these crazy people believe to make them do such a thing. And that's really what drove me towards learning more about Islam and questioning it and asking God to guide me. Along my search and my struggle to sort of find my path, my religion, my truth, I went into so many different aspects of religion. I went into things that I perhaps should have stayed away from. I went into even had a friend who was Buddhist, and I went into asking questions. I never actually practiced any of this, but I went into finding out what made you want to be Buddhist, why, what is the Buddhist belief, what is Buddhism in general, and why did you accept that? I also spoke to my family member who is my aunt, and she is a Pentecostal Christian. So I began going to church with her, and I had for years before that. I went to church with her. I grew up in and out of Pentecostal Christian churches. Also, my brother got married and became a Baptist minister. So when my brother became a Baptist minister, I started going to church with him and his wife. And that was similar to what I had already seen with Christianity, but slightly different. I had been going to church, to the Roman Catholic Church with my parents growing up, all my life pretty much. They went very seldomly. I would say maybe 3 times per year. But when we went for these ritual ceremonies that I would call Easter, Ash Wednesday, Good Friday. And it was like the best way I could describe it was like a ceremony of certain things that and they would do or perform, and then certain prayers that we would say, and then we would leave and go on about ourselves. And so I experienced that. I was never baptized. I was born into my original state, and however God wanted me to be here, right? He created me the way he wanted to create me. I believe he created me sinless. And then I went into pretty much being born into a family of non-practicing Puerto Ricans or non-religious Puerto Ricans, and later on got involved with the Catholic religion because there's a stigma that if you don't baptize your child, they become susceptible to evil. So here I am already like grown, like not that grown, but I was 9. And so at the age of 9, the priest decided, well, you can't find godparents, so why don't you just put her in Sunday school? Sunday school was really interesting because I was one of the oldest kids there. And my mom essentially put me there so that I could have all of my questions answered because she didn't really have all the answers. Well, she made the effort to get those answers for me. But when I raised my hand too many times or asked the questions that I shouldn't have been asking, it was a problem. So eventually I ended up being the child in the back of the class that always had a hand up and was just ignored. So in the Catholic religion, it's like wrong to question God. And when I was questioning, the questions that I had were pretty legit, and I thought they were good questions. But to the nuns and the head teacher, she felt like I was questioning God. And they felt that I had no faith and that was a problem. The questions I was asking in the class, the children would go home and ask their parents. So that became like a form of controversy for them and sort of defeated the reason why they brought their kids to school in a sense. And so the nun invited my mom to the office and sat down and had a private session with my mom and I, asking if everything was okay at home. And my mom said, yeah, sure, it's okay. What do you mean? You know, she's fine. She doesn't have any faith, the nun told my mom. She has no faith. She's a child with no faith. She questions everything. And so my mom said, yes, I know. That's why she's here. So you can show her the way, teach her so that she has her questions answered. I don't have the answer to her questions, but that's why she's here. And so it was to the point where there was a moment of silence after my mom said that. And it was to the point where she asked my mom to work on that. I left. Next Sunday comes around, and my mom saw the sadness in my face was so obvious that my mom decided to ask me if I wanted to come into class. And I said no. So she said, okay, let's go have some ice cream. And we did. We went, we had a banana split. And that was the end of Sunday school. And so I went on through my life and my teenage years, always curious, always questioning and looking into things. And I got into so many different books just looking for some sort of guidance. And finally, when I went to college, I took a comparative religion class. And in college, it was pretty much a free elective class because that was not my major at all. And so I also made a Muslim friend. And now this is post 9/11. And I was, in a sense, doing that because I was feeling type Islamophobic, and I don't like saying it, but I was looking at Muslims like they were going to do something else. And once I began learning more and I made this Muslim friend and I started asking more questions and reading their books, that was the thing. I actually had the opportunity to go to a mosque and get books from their library. And so I read those fundamental books and I realized, you know, I don't see anything wrong here. I don't see anything bad or anything that I can go against in these books. And so I continued questioning Islam. I think that overall I was convinced already, but my stubbornness was sort of making me go into like these details, looking for something that I didn't agree with so I could say, oh, nah, this ain't for me. Like, it's time to move on. Or what were you thinking? But that never happened. You know, I was in denial for some time and realized that Islam is the truth and this is a religion for me, and I accepted it as my truth. And so when I converted to Islam, there were so many adversities and challenges for me. Firstly, I had to learn another language so that I can begin to pray. Now that came with time, and I was told to not be rushing through it and to take my time, and that God knows that I don't necessarily know the language, or that I did not come into Islam as a child. I don't have Muslim family members. So this is a position I'm in after I became Muslim, where I felt like I need to learn everything. I want to know everything at the same time. I want to know everything I can possibly know about Islam, but I wanted it to like be like tomorrow. And I put too much on myself. It became a little difficult until I realized it. Somebody told me, girl, you need to take a step back. Like, you know, there's people who have studied Islam for years and never even know everything. So you worry about the fundamentals and the basic principles and your basic obligations. So that's what I did. And so I learned how to pray on my own. Like, I was listening to my headset. There was a prayer, a cassette tape. I'm that old. Okay, a cassette tape in my Walkman. I would listen to it every day, and it would repeat the call to prayer. It would repeat the Al-Fatiha and the short verses that were in that prayer. So I actually I memorized it before I learned how to do any formation. So when I finally converted to Islam, I called my parents up, and they had an idea this would happen. I had them in tune to what I had been studying and how my thoughts were transforming, and what Islam said about this and what Islam said about that. So every time I learned something new, I would share it with them. My mom, I would say, is like my best friend, and my father is like that male best friend that I never had. So I do talk to them often, and I shared everything with them. Although they were living in Puerto Rico and I was living in New Jersey, we were in constant contact. So when I finally declared my faith, or what we call Shahada, I called my mom and I told her, and her first reaction, which is crazy for her to say this, but she said, no wonder we were never able to baptize you. You weren't meant to be anything but Muslim. So for my mom, who's not a Muslim, who doesn't really understand everything, to just come out and just be the first thing that she says after I told her I converted, to say that No wonder we were never able to find those godparents that were married by the Roman Catholic Church so that we can go ahead with that procedure. It was because you were meant to be Muslim. And so for my mom to say that, that was just so supportive. And it meant so much to me. My dad was the next person on the phone, and he said, as long as you're doing something good, I don't care. If this is what makes you happy, I'm okay. So from the initial declaration, my parents were supportive. Now, was it easy? No. They don't know anything about Islamic culture. They don't know anything about beliefs. They don't really even practice their own faith. So it was a challenge. It was a huge challenge for them. But they accepted. Now, I was not wearing hijab yet. I was not wearing hijab. And I wasn't really wearing typical Arab clothes or Middle Eastern style or, Pakistani style or Indian style clothes. I wasn't into that. I was just buying very modest American style, Western style clothes, but the long hobo skirts and the long sleeve shirts. I would buy an extra size larger, and still, yet, it was the hijab that really made a difference to them. And to be identified as a Muslim while being with them, to them it was different, and I understand that. My conviction with my hijab, eventually, with time, after hurtful comments and after friends that I thought were there for me till the end disappeared because now I'm a hijabi. After that, I didn't really care much what people said, thought, or anything. It was just I'm Muslim. I'm just like I'm a proud Puerto Rican. I am also a proud Muslim. And, not to let that get over my head, but hijab is my pride, and I'm going to wear it, and I'm not going to take it off, regardless to whom likes it or not. This is not for anybody else to like. This is for me to be comfortable with. This is for me to understand why I'm doing. This is my choice, and I'm doing this to please my Lord, not to please a human being. So if I allow people to bother me, even though it did hurt, I didn't show it. And it only hurt because it was family, that didn't understand and that. But eventually, I would say several years after I converted, they were used to me already with hijab. They were used to me. There was no question, are you hot in that? Or are you, how do you have so much clothes on? Or I don't know, I felt like they would look at me sometimes and feel like their pressure go up, or their blood pressure would rise, or they would get hot just by looking at me. But by the grace of God, I was able, with my actions, to sort of change that around without even realizing it. Time passed, time went by, and today, my family does support me all the way. If wearing hijab is going to make you insecure about yourself or your situation in society, and going out into society as a hijabi is so difficult for you, eventually it's going to become depressing, So I mentally set myself up, and I set my intention right. I made sure that I knew I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, and I know I'm not perfect, and I'm probably not going to get it right away, but eventually I'll get it. And so from that came a Combined Designs Dignity Apparel brand, which is a clothing line that I started because every time I went into the shops that were available, I found myself trying clothes on from somebody else's culture. and it didn't feel like really who I was. I felt like I was trying somebody else's clothes on. Therefore, I decided to find me a local seamstress. It's like, okay, I can draw, I'm pretty artistic, and I drew up some designs. I went to the fashion district of New York. I made some friends who, you know, sold me some wholesale fabrics, and I went to the seamstress with my drawing, and she made samples and patterns for me, and I started wearing it. Whatever it is that I had made, I would just wear it. Upon entering the masjid or seeing sisters along the way, they inquired about my clothing line and eventually even purchased some items. Now, producing it in New York City, in the fashion district, as they encourage you to do, is not cheap and would have really costed quite a bit for me to make any profit. So nonetheless, I sold several dresses and I did a little bit of that, but I continued to work on my hijab brand. And so I would buy chiffon and georgettes and different fabrics I thought would be great for hijab. And I would bring them to a Turkish lady who was making them for me. The Turkish lady eventually, she ended up passing away, which was really sad when I found out. Had no idea. I was not even able to go to her funeral. She was working out of a shop, and so I continued buying fabrics and scarves from someone else that I had been working with. But when I moved here to Houston, I sort of realized that in different regions, there's different likings to other fabrics rather than chiffon and georgettes. So I sort of put a hold on that because that's not really what I focused on with the scarf line. And there are today many people wearing some of these designs, and in Puerto Rico, I sold some scarves actually, which is crazy. I would take it with me sometimes. I would do hijab parties. So that was fun. I made it sort of like a lifestyle, and I made it fun. And I would prepare my outfits, you know, the day before. I always had at least 2 or 3 outfits ready to go. And I got it from my mom. She matches everything. And so she accessorizes, her shoes have to match her purse and stuff like that. So I guess I got that from them. And what would help, and unfortunately, because we have to see a celebrity doing it in order for us to be like, oh, now that's cool, which is sad. That's really sad, because we can't be individuals and say, okay, hopefully the majority of us will be individual thinkers and say, this is what I want to do for myself before that happens. But if that were to happen, where modesty sells rather than sex sells, that would be an amazing turn. And it would gain us a lot more respect than we could ever imagine today.